In my last video, I showed you how to make low-effort sourdough bread. In this video, I took exactly the same ingredients and quantities, but changed the method. Today, we'll see a 40% Kamut sourdough bread, and I will share with you some interesting things about Kamut. Let's see first the ingredients for this bread. 400 grams of Kamut flour, 600 grams strong bread flour, 600 milliliters of water, 300 grams of sourdough starter, and 20 grams of salt. In the morning, mix the two types of flour with water and let the dough sit covered for 2 hours. While I am mixing this dough, let's talk about Kamut. What is Kamut? Kamut is an ancient grain thought to be a cousin of durum, with a grain that is at least twice the size of modern wheat. This grain comes with nice stories behind it and has many given names. In 1949, a US airman purchased 36 kernels from a vendor in Cairo who claimed to have taken them from a tomb of an ancient Egyptian king. He brought this grain to his father, who had a farm, and planted them. They called it King's Tutwit, but they had only small local success with it. It was just later in the 1990s that Kamut became a commercial success after being trademarked to protect and guarantee that it would be grown organically and unmodified. Demand started to grow when people found Kamut to be more easily digested and more flavored compared to modern wheat varieties. Although the last part of the story is certain, the origin of this grain is debatable, as it is highly unlikely that the wheat grains could sprout after 2000 years, as the seed's ability to germinate is almost lost during this time. It is just after 2 hours that the sourdough joins the main dough. This resting time is needed for the gluten to form. The original dough was stiff and difficult to form, but when the sourdough is added, it becomes more manageable. I use a standing mixer at its slowest speed for 10 minutes to knead the dough, but it can also be done by hand. Then I let the dough sit for 1 hour. It's time to add the last ingredient, the salt. Salt is adding strength to the dough. It is not there just for the taste. As I did before, I'll mix the dough for 5 minutes to ensure that the salt is well combined. Then rest again for 1 hour. From this quantity of dough, I make 2 loaves, so I need to split it in 2. While doing this, I also stretch and fold the dough to enhance its structure. Coming back to the stories of Kamut, another legend says that Noah brought this Khorasan wheat with him on the ark, from where another name for Kamut is the prophet's wheat. Also, the farmers in Turkey call the grain camel's tooth because of its specific shape. It is summer here in Belgium, and the temperatures exceed 25 degrees Celsius in my house, allowing me to let the dough on the board without needing to use a bread proofer. Now, rest again for 1 hour. A stiff dough like this one comes with natural strength, so keep in mind that the lamination step is optional. However, I like to do it to check the elasticity and expansibility of the dough. Kamut is a good source of protein, containing up to 40% more protein compared to modern wheat, and it is lower in gluten. Kamut is also higher in minerals such as selenium and zinc. While laminating the second dough, let me explain the steps. Reverse the glass bowl and the dough will fall on the board in one piece. Stretch the corners and slowly stretch the dough into a large sheet. If possible, avoid breaking it. The expansibility characteristic will let you know how much you can stretch the dough without breaking it. You'll also notice that the dough has a tendency to come back to its form. That's the elasticity characteristic. If you are able to stretch it without easily breaking it, you know you have a good quality gluten network. But when it breaks, you'd better stop stretching it further. Then roll it or fold it, place it back in the bowl and let it rest for 2 hours. Kamut flour has a yellowish color and tends to have higher water absorption. A dough made with it forms good elasticity, but is less well-performing in extensibility, resulting in dough with less volume and denser texture. This dough is stiff enough to need no more than half of a coil fold. Then let it slowly ferment in the next 2 hours. You can easily notice that the dough kept its shape and it is ready to be put in the banneton. Be super gentle with the dough at this stage because it is full of bubbles that you want to preserve. For this, avoid overstretching it or pressing it. When the dough is put into bannetons, the first fermentation is over. But this dough requires more time for the wild yeasts to produce more CO2 and raise the dough. Do you notice the bubbles on the bottom of the bowl? These are fermentation bubbles. I check the pH of the dough to see how much time I should still let the dough at room temperature. Pay attention though, because Kamut dough has the tendency to proof faster than classic wheat. About 2 hours seems to be okay before putting it in the fridge overnight. The fermentation will slow down until the dough reaches the fridge temperature, and tomorrow morning it will be ready for baking. preheat the oven to 270 degrees Celsius before taking the dough out of the fridge. Decorating and scoring the dough is the artistic part of bread baking. While decorating is just a visually pleasing thing, the scoring has a functional role, allowing the dough to expand more in the oven. Bake at 270 degrees Celsius for the first 15 minutes. Then, reduce it to 220 degrees Celsius and continue to bake for 20 minutes. Bread needs steam in the first part of the baking, so I pour water over hot lava rocks in a pan under the baking stone. After baking, let it cool. This is the final part of the baking process. If you cut it warm, the crumb gets sticky and shrinks, releasing steam from the inside. Eating a warm crumb is not a good idea for your digestive system either, although I know it is difficult to resist the smell. Cutting the loaves is the most exciting part of baking bread. Learn to read a crumb and you'll improve your baking skills. But for people eating the bread, the most important is the taste and texture. Bread with kamut flour is slightly sweeter and has a rich, buttery and nutty flavor. It is firm and holds easily anything you want to spread on it. It is easy to digest due to its low gluten content while having high proteins, fibers, vitamins and minerals. Therefore, it might be a good alternative for those with gluten sensitivities. If you like this video, give a thumb up and subscribe to my channel for more recipes, techniques or tips and tricks about bread making.